y'all, Dixie here. Today I want to talk to you about a question that I tend to get right as thru-hiker season is starting, or just a little before, especially like February to March, and that is it normal to be nervous before a thru-hike? And the answer is no. You must be a weirdo and you should probably just not even go. I'm just kidding. Yes, it is completely normal. And the people who send me that question, if they could see what a big baby I was the day I was starting my AT thru-hike, they wouldn't even ask me that question. So some of y'all may have seen the footage from my first day on the AT, actually on the approach trail when I was starting at Amicalola Falls, and I was extremely nervous. Before I hit record on the camera, I had been tearing up. I had just left my family and I was kind of going, what have I done? The funny thing is, I had never been on an overnight backpacking trip and I didn't even know what to be afraid of. I was afraid of the unknown, so I was basically nervous about everything. I had never cooked anything with my stove. I had never hung a bear bag. I had an idea of how these things worked, obviously, and I knew that they had bear cables in Georgia, but you know, I wasn't familiar with any of it. I was stepping completely off into the unknown, just kind of diving into the lion's den, and I even worried about simple things like, what are people gonna think of my gear? Like, did I pick the gear that you're really supposed to use? Even though I had read for hours and hours and hours what past thru-hikers had used. It was like I was in middle school or something and I was worried that I didn't have the cool shoes. And then I thought, once I get past bear cable area, am I gonna know how to hang a bear bag? Am I gonna look dumb hanging a bear bag? And the truth is, yeah, I did look kind of dumb the first time I hung a bear bag. I tied the cord to an end of a rock and threw it over a branch, and I rang it the first time, like I got it over the branch, but I was so excited that I wasn't even paying attention when the rock swung back and I almost forgot to dodge it and about knocked my teeth out. So, you know, of course, you're gonna be worried about those simple things, and yeah, you're not gonna look like a professional if you're not a professional, and that's okay. I wasn't the only one who didn't look like a professional at doing those basic things, and luckily the whole situation turned out better than I could have expected. I met amazing people, a lot who were more experienced than myself, and some that had maybe only been on one overnight trip, and then some who were like me and had never done any of it before. It ended up being an unforgettable journey, and then I decided to do the PCT. So before the PCT, I wasn't nervous anymore, right? Wrong. I was probably a little more nervous because I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. And as the Greyhound bus was approaching San Diego, I was so nervous that I was nauseous because all I could do was obsessively just think about rattlesnakes, lack of water, and high snowpack in the Sierra Nevada. Yes, I saw 10 rattlesnakes in the state of California. There were longer stretches without water, and you know, there was a lot of snow in the Sierra Nevada. But again, the situation turned out way better than I expected. It was an amazing adventure, and you know, I was able to successfully complete the PCT. And now I find myself preparing for the CDT, and I'm nervous again, this time about weather, higher elevation, grizzly bears up in Montana. I mean, I have a whole new set of concerns, but I'm gonna go for it. So yes, I think that being nervous before a thru-hike is completely normal, or at least I'm weird with you. Something that might help you calm down is if you think back to a time in life where maybe you were starting a new job or moving to a city where you didn't know anybody, or maybe even, you know, breaking up with a significant other. You know, before that moment of knowing that this big change was going to come into your life, you probably had some form of anxiety or nervousness or, you know, whatever. And if you're still a part of this world today and you're watching this video right now, then those situations probably turned out okay, if not good. And if it wasn't necessarily, you know, a good outcome, I'm sure if you think about it, you can find something that came from it that benefited you. So if you're about to start a thru-hike and you're finding yourself a little bit nervous, try to get to the root of that fear. So what exactly are you worried about? Is it wildlife? Is it crime? Hitchhiking, the weather? If it's one of those topics, you could do a little research, try to figure out the best way to handle those situations that you're afraid you might be in, and then just let it go, because stressing over it is not going to prevent it from happening. And maybe you're even worried about something that's off the trail. For most people, the last few weeks or a couple months leading up to a thru-hike are probably a very transitional time. You know, you've quit your job, or you've moved back home, or sold your house. So things are probably going from very stable to like very questionable in just a matter of a couple of months. So you're worried about leaving family and friends, you're worried about leaving your pets, you know, just not being where you're used to being for 6 months. And maybe you can find ways to remedy that a little bit, like you can have friends and family meet you along the way, or if you start with enough time, early enough, you might can take a week off and go home and relax a little bit, just try to find ways to put your mind at ease. Another thing that you can do, and something that I've found helps for me, is to write it down. I keep a journal and I like to log the way that I'm feeling about something, especially if I'm nervous or excited, and that way you can go back and look at it later. And especially if you're writing about what your fears are, you're probably going to look back halfway through your thru hike and laugh at yourself for even being worried about that situation. And if nothing else, you can start a blog and share some of those thoughts and feelings so that other people who are about to start a thru hike can relate to that. And then you're creating a log for maybe your kids or grandchildren to read and realize how awesome their grandma and grandpa was to get out there and conquer their fears. I think a lot of people get nervous before a thru hike, myself included, because the thing that they're probably afraid of most is failure. But the thing that we have to keep in mind is that without giving ourselves the opportunity to fail and taking risks, we're also not giving ourselves the opportunity to succeed and grow. But I mean, failure of a thru hike is not uncommon to worry about, because I think 75 to 80% of people who start the AT or PCT with intentions to thru hike don't actually complete it. But I guarantee you, a lot of the people who don't successfully complete their thru hike have still had an amazing adventure, have probably learned a whole lot about themselves, and have benefited from being in nature whatever span of time they were out there. And then also just the exercise of taking that first step on a challenge so great. I mean, that's got to be beneficial to your mind and to your confidence. Somebody told me when I was starting my thru hike of the AT that one foot in front of the other is really all it takes. And honestly, it is. I mean, it's literally putting one foot in front of the other that will get you there. And I know on bad days and, even the first day after I took that first step, I just kept saying to myself, that's it. That's all I have to do is literally just keep doing that, and I'm gonna get there. So maybe that'll help some of y'all to just keep that in mind, just keep putting one foot in front of the other and it's gonna happen. But the thing is if you don't get out there and take that first step, you're never gonna know if you can make it to the end or not. Instead of focusing on failure, try to focus on what do you intend to gain from the experience. So is it more confidence? Is it just a more peaceful mind? Is it beautiful pictures from nature, meeting like-minded people? What is important to you about this journey? As my start date for especially the AT grew closer, I found myself wanting to push it back. I kept telling myself I need more time to plan, I need more time to research, I need, more time to get in shape. But, I had my basic needs covered. So if you find yourself wanting to push your date back because, you just want to be in a little bit better shape, or you want to go on one test run with your gear, a good thing to remember, just to put it in perspective, is that a thru hike is essentially just a bunch of section hikes all woven together. So you're not going to be out in the wilderness for literally 6 months straight. You're going to have a little stretch, and then you can go into town to recoup, a little stretch, go into town to recoup. So if your gear ends up not working out perfectly, I mean, that's the same thing that you would do at home. You would go out there for a little piece and then try to figure out and swap up some gear. So as long as your basic needs are covered and you can take care of yourself out in the wilderness for 3 to 5 days, you're probably going to be okay. And as far as getting into shape, as long as you take it slow and listen to your body, I mean, I've seen people out there who, for example, a girl that I knew started off at 230 pounds and went out there so she could lose some weight, and she ended up at her goal, which was 130. Just try to remind yourself that you've planned for this no matter how long the planning has taken. Some of you have probably been planning this for years, and some of y'all, this is like a last minute thing and you've got like a couple of weeks to throw everything together. Regardless of your situation, I've met people who successfully thru hiked that were in both of those categories. So I'm just telling you that there are people out there that are in the same situation and have the same worries as you do right now, and they're making it happen. Yes, it is normal to be nervous, and the good news is that as soon as you step foot on the trail, or maybe at least a couple days into it, a lot of that nervousness is going to subside, and you're going to really start to enjoy yourself and to just kind of get in the swing of things. I guess my few last pieces of takeaway advice would be to just take a deep breath, keep your head up and enjoy the view, and like I always say, don't quit on a bad day. And with that, I'm gonna stop preaching. If any of y'all who have been in this boat before, getting ready for a thru hike and and going through that just nervous phase before you get started. If you found something that helped you calm down a little bit or to cope with that, please feel free to comment that below. It might help some other people who are getting ready to take off on their thru hike. And for all of y'all who are thru hiking this year, good luck to you. I wish you the best, and I really hope you enjoy it. And thank y'all for watching. We will see y'all next time.